Daniel was a boy who had already seen more pain in life than many adults ever had. He was only 12 years old, yet he carried the weight of loneliness, hunger, and uncertainty on his small shoulders every day. He lived on the streets of Los Angeles, with no roof above his head and no one to call family. His parents had both passed away in an accident 2 years earlier, and after moving through a few foster homes that never worked out, Daniel had slipped through the cracks. Now the streets were his only home. But Daniel was not like many other children who had given up hope. Even though his stomach often ached with hunger and his clothes were worn out and too small for him, he had one thing that kept him alive inside: his love for drawing. He always carried a tiny pencil stub in his pocket, the only thing he had managed to hold onto from his old life. Whenever he could, he would pick up scraps of paper, sometimes old receipts from the trash, sometimes the back of flyers people dropped, and he would sketch on them. Drawing made Daniel feel safe. When he drew, the noise of the city faded away. The hunger in his stomach felt weaker, and the loneliness in his heart seemed lighter. His hands, small and rough from living outside, moved with surprising skill. He had never gone to art school, never been taught how to draw, but he had a natural gift. He could capture faces with such detail that people sometimes stopped to stare in amazement at his little sketches. One evening, Daniel sat outside a small diner on a busy street. The lights inside were warm and bright, and the smell of food drifted out every time someone opened the door. Daniel's stomach growled, but he didn't beg. He rarely asked for money or food. Instead, he pulled out a napkin he had found near a trash bin and began to draw. His pencil stub scratched lightly across the soft surface, and slowly, a face began to appear. The face belonged to someone Daniel had seen on movie posters many times: Keanu Reeves. Daniel admired him, not just because he was a famous actor, but because of the kindness he had heard about. Sometimes people in the diner talked about him. They said Keanu was different from other celebrities. He was humble, gentle, and always helped people quietly without expecting attention. Daniel had even once heard a man say, "Keanu Reeves is the kind of person who would give his seat on the subway to a stranger without a second thought." That stayed with Daniel. So, as the noise of cars honked and rushed by, Daniel carefully sketched Keanu's face on the napkin. His eyes narrowed in concentration. He focused on the shape of the eyes, the calm strength in them, the kind curve of the mouth. Even though the napkin tore a little under his pencil, Daniel kept going. He wanted to capture not just how Keanu looked but how he seemed to feel: quiet, patient, and strong. A waitress from the diner noticed him. Her name was Maria, and she had often seen Daniel sitting outside. Sometimes she slipped him a sandwich or a glass of water when her manager wasn't looking. Tonight, she stepped outside and crouched beside him. "That's really good," she said softly, pointing at the napkin. Daniel glanced up shyly. Compliments always made him nervous, but he managed a small smile. "Thank you," he whispered. "Do you know who that is?" Maria asked, tilting her head. Daniel nodded. "It's Keanu Reeves? He seems like a good person." Maria's eyes softened. "You know, he actually came here once. Sat right at that counter inside. It was late at night. He didn't act like a movie star at all. Just ordered coffee and talked to the cook about baseball. Nobody even recognized him until he left." Daniel's eyes widened. For a moment, he imagined what it would be like if Keanu walked by right now and saw his drawing. The thought made his chest feel warm. Maria smiled and handed him another napkin. "Here, in case you want to make another. You've got talent, kid. Don't give up on it." Her kindness gave Daniel courage. He stayed on the diner's steps long after the night had grown colder, sketching carefully. He pressed his pencil lightly, shading the eyes so they seemed alive. He smoothed the lines of the hair, the calm expression, the quiet strength. When he finally looked at it, even he was surprised. The portrait looked almost real, like Keanu was staring back at him from the napkin. Daniel didn't know what to do with it. He couldn't carry every drawing with him, his pockets were too small, and most of the paper he used got ruined in the rain. So he taped the napkin carefully to the diner's wall by the door. He wanted to leave something behind, a silent thank you to Maria and to the kind people who sometimes gave him food. Maybe someone would notice the drawing and smile. That was enough for him. That night, Daniel curled up in his usual spot near the alley behind the diner. He had no blanket, only his thin hoodie. The city was loud, and the ground was hard, but as he closed his eyes, he thought of the portrait. For the first time in many weeks, he felt a little proud. Maybe, just maybe, his art could mean something. The morning after Daniel left his drawing taped on the diner's wall, the city moved as usual. Cars rushed by, people hurried to work, and the streets were filled with noise. Daniel, however, felt something different inside him. He had left a piece of himself on that napkin, and even though it was just a fragile sketch, it felt important. It was almost like leaving behind a small part of his heart where someone could see it. He wandered the streets, as he always did, looking for food or small kindnesses. Sometimes people dropped a few coins in his hand, sometimes they ignored him. But all through the day, he thought about that napkin taped on the diner's wall. He wondered if anyone would notice it. Maybe someone would laugh, or maybe someone would smile. He didn't know, but the thought gave him hope. Inside the diner, Maria noticed the drawing too. She had seen Daniel working on it for hours, and she couldn't bring herself to throw it away. Instead, she smoothed out the edges and used a bit more tape to secure it on the wall near the counter. Customers came and went, and every so often, someone would glance at the sketch. A few even commented on how lifelike it was. One man who sat at the counter said, "That almost looks like a professional did it." Another woman smiled and added, "You can feel something in the eyes. Whoever drew this must have a gift." Maria's heart swelled with pride for Daniel. She wished he could hear the praise, wished he could see that people appreciated his talent. But she also knew how shy he was, how he always kept to himself. She made a quiet promise to herself that she would keep encouraging him. That evening, Daniel came back to the diner. He sat on the steps again, holding his pencil stub. He had no more napkins, but Maria slipped him a few when she noticed. This time, she also gave him a small plate of fries. "Eat while you draw," she said warmly. Daniel's eyes lit up. He hadn't eaten all day, and the food tasted like heaven. As he ate slowly, savoring every bite, he sketched again. This time it wasn't Keanu Reeves. He drew Maria, with her kind smile and tired eyes. He wanted to thank her in the only way he knew how, through art. When he showed it to her, she gasped softly. "Daniel, this is me." He nodded shyly. "You're kind. I wanted to remember that." Maria's eyes grew misty, but she quickly blinked them clear. "You have a gift, Daniel. Don't ever stop drawing, no matter what." Her words stayed with him that night as he lay on his piece of cardboard in the alley. The world was cold, but her kindness was warm. And his heart, though fragile, carried that warmth like a small flame. Days passed, and the napkin portrait of Keanu remained on the diner's wall. More customers noticed it, and some even asked who had drawn it. Maria always answered honestly, "A boy who sometimes sits outside." She never mentioned his name, wanting to protect him, but she always spoke with pride. One Friday evening, as the city buzzed with weekend energy, something unexpected happened. A quiet man walked into the diner, wearing a simple jacket and jeans. He had a calm presence, almost as if he carried peace with him. People turned their heads, some recognizing him immediately, though he tried to blend in. It was Keanu Reeves himself. He came in alone, without an assistant or a crowd, just looking for a quiet meal. The diner was busy, but when he sat down at the counter, the place seemed to hush slightly. The cook smiled, Maria froze for a second, and a few customers whispered in surprise. Keanu ordered coffee and a sandwich, speaking politely and softly, like an ordinary person. But his eyes wandered as he waited. That was when he saw the napkin sketch taped to the wall near the counter. He leaned forward slightly, studying it. His expression changed from casual interest to quiet amazement. He set his cup down carefully, then stood and walked closer. For several long seconds, he just looked at it. The likeness was uncanny. The details were sharp, but more than that, there was emotion in the drawing. It captured not just his face but something deeper: kindness, strength, and a hint of sadness he sometimes carried inside. It felt personal, as if the artist had seen through the surface and drawn the soul beneath. Keanu turned to Maria, who stood watching nervously. "Who made this?" he asked in his calm, steady voice. Maria hesitated. She didn't want to expose Daniel, but she also couldn't lie. "It was drawn by a boy, a homeless boy. He sits outside sometimes. His name is Daniel." Keanu's eyes softened, but there was also urgency in them. "Do you know where I can find him?" Maria shook her head. "He comes and goes. He doesn't stay in one place for long. But he's here often. He draws on napkins, on receipts, on whatever paper he can find." Keanu's heart ached as he listened. He looked back at the sketch, then back at Maria. "This boy has talent. Real talent. I need to meet him." Maria felt her chest tighten. She had seen many people pass by Daniel without even looking at him, treating him as if he were invisible. But here was one of the most famous actors in the world, standing in her small diner, speaking with genuine care about the boy she had grown to worry about like a little brother. When Keanu left the diner that night, he carried more than just the memory of a meal. He carried the image of that sketch in his mind, and the thought of the boy who made it. He knew he had to find him, no matter what. Meanwhile, Daniel slept that night under a bridge, unaware of the chain of events his drawing had set in motion. He didn't know that a world-famous actor had seen his portrait and wanted to meet him. He didn't know that his life was about to change forever. All he knew was that he would keep drawing tomorrow, because it was the only thing that gave him hope. The portrait on the napkin stayed on the diner's wall like a quiet secret, but for Keanu, it was not something he could forget. The moment he saw it, he felt something stir deep inside him. It wasn't just the skill of the drawing that moved him, it was the feeling behind it. He had seen hundreds of portraits of himself over the years, painted by fans or printed in magazines, but none of them felt like this. This one was different. This one came from someone who understood loneliness, who saw more than just his face. When Keanu left the diner that night, the city was alive with flashing lights and rushing cars, but his thoughts were only on the boy. He drove through the streets slowly, his eyes searching the sidewalks, the corners, the dark alleys. He didn't see Daniel, but he didn't stop thinking about him either. The next morning, Maria found Keanu sitting quietly at the same counter again. He was sipping his coffee, and when she approached, he gave her a polite smile. "Any sign of him?" he asked gently. Maria shook her head. "He hasn't been here since you came. But he will. He always comes back." Keanu nodded, his expression serious. "When he does, please tell him I'd like to meet him. I'd like to talk to him about his art." Maria studied his face, trying to see if this was just polite interest or something more. But his eyes told her everything. He truly cared. This wasn't for show, not for cameras or headlines. It was real. Word began to spread quickly. Someone at the diner had whispered that Keanu Reeves was searching for a homeless boy who had drawn him. Soon, the story was picked up by a local journalist who visited the diner. She snapped a photo of the napkin sketch and wrote an article titled, "Keanu Reeves Seeks Talented Street Artist." The article spread online, and people were touched by the story. Social media lit up with posts and comments. Many praised Keanu for noticing the boy's talent, while others expressed hope that Daniel would be found soon. Some even began walking around the area near the diner, asking if anyone had seen a boy who sketched faces. But Daniel had no idea. He spent his days wandering different streets, sitting in parks, and sketching on scraps of paper. Sometimes people stopped to watch him, and once in a while, someone gave him $1 or $2. But most of the time, he was invisible. He didn't own a phone, didn't read newspapers, and didn't go online. The world could be searching for him, and he would never know. One evening, as the sun was setting and painting the sky with orange light, Daniel returned to the diner. He sat in his usual spot, pulling out a crumpled piece of cardboard to sketch on. He was drawing the outline of a bird when Maria rushed outside. Her heart jumped with relief at the sight of him. "Daniel," she whispered urgently, crouching beside him. "Do you know who came here asking about you?" He looked up, startled. "Who?" "Keanu Reeves," she said, her voice almost trembling with excitement. "He saw your drawing. He loved it. He wants to meet you." Daniel froze. For a moment, he thought she was joking. His hand stopped moving, and his pencil slipped from his fingers. "That's not possible," he whispered. Maria shook her head firmly. "It's true. He came here, he asked about you, and he said he wants to find you." Daniel's heart raced. The thought of a famous actor, someone he admired from afar, searching for him felt unreal. His first instinct was fear. Why would someone like that care about him, a homeless boy with nothing? But beneath the fear was something else: hope. A fragile, trembling hope he hadn't felt in a long time. "Will he come back?" Daniel asked softly. Maria nodded. "He's been here twice already. He'll come again. Stay close, Daniel. Don't disappear this time." That night, Daniel couldn't sleep. He lay awake under the stars, staring at the sky, his mind filled with questions. What would he say if he met Keanu? Would Keanu really like his art, or would he change his mind once he saw Daniel's ragged clothes and dirty hands? He wanted to believe it was real, but doubt gnawed at him. The next evening, Daniel returned to the diner, his heart pounding. He sat outside, clutching his pencil stub, waiting. Inside, Maria watched anxiously. She hoped Keanu would come that night, hoped the boy would not slip away before they met. Hours passed. Customers came and went. Daniel grew restless, but he stayed. Then, just as he was about to leave, a familiar figure entered the diner. The man in the simple jacket, quiet and unassuming, walked straight to the counter. It was him. Keanu Reeves? Daniel's breath caught in his throat. For a moment, he wanted to run, but his feet stayed rooted to the ground. Maria noticed and quickly gestured for him to wait. She hurried inside and leaned toward Keanu. "He's here," she whispered. "The boy. He's outside right now." Keanu's eyes lit up. He stood immediately, his chair scraping softly against the floor. Without hesitation, he walked outside. Daniel sat frozen on the steps, his pencil still in his hand. When Keanu stepped out, the world seemed to grow quiet. The noise of traffic faded, and all Daniel could hear was the sound of his own heartbeat. Keanu knelt slightly so his eyes were level with Daniel's. His voice was gentle, calm. "You're Daniel, right?" Daniel nodded nervously. "Yes, I saw your drawing," Keanu said, his eyes full of warmth. "It's beautiful. You have a gift." Daniel blinked, unsure if he was dreaming. "You liked it?" "I loved it," Keanu said firmly. "The way you captured expression, the feeling in the eyes, it's incredible. You're very talented." Tears welled up in Daniel's eyes, but he quickly wiped them with the back of his sleeve. No one had ever spoken to him like this, not with such sincerity. He whispered, "Thank you." Keanu smiled softly. "No, thank you. You reminded me how powerful art can be." For the first time in years, Daniel felt seen. Truly seen. Not as a homeless boy, not as someone to be pitied, but as an artist. That night, their meeting was brief, but it planted the seed of something bigger. Keanu promised they would meet again soon. Daniel, still overwhelmed, nodded. He didn't know what the future held, but for the first time, he felt it might be brighter than he had ever imagined. The night Daniel met Keanu felt unreal, like a dream that might fade as soon as morning came. But when the sun rose and he opened his eyes on the cold pavement, he remembered every detail: the calm voice, the kind smile, the words that still echoed in his heart, "You have a gift." For the first time in his life, Daniel didn't feel invisible. Someone important had seen him, not as a homeless boy, but as an artist. Keanu kept his promise. 2 days later, he returned to the diner. This time, he came earlier in the evening, hoping Daniel would be there. Maria greeted him with a bright smile and whispered, "He's outside." Daniel was sitting on the steps again, drawing on another napkin, his shoulders hunched as if trying to make himself small. Keanu walked up to him, slow and steady, not wanting to scare him. Daniel looked up, and when he saw who it was, his eyes widened. "You came back," he whispered. "I told you I would," Keanu said warmly. "And I meant it." They sat together on the steps, the noise of the city all around them. Keanu asked Daniel about his drawings, how long he had been sketching, and where he learned. Daniel shrugged shyly. "I just draw. It makes me feel better. Like the world isn't so heavy." Keanu nodded, listening carefully. He didn't interrupt, didn't rush him. "Art does that," he said quietly. "It's a way of speaking without words. And you do it beautifully." Daniel's cheeks flushed with pride. For so long, people had walked past him without a glance, but here was someone who not only noticed him but cared enough to listen. As the evening went on, Keanu told Maria he wanted to help Daniel. "Do you know where he stays?" he asked. Maria shook her head sadly. "He moves around. Sometimes he sleeps behind the diner, sometimes under the bridge. He doesn't have one place." Keanu frowned thoughtfully. "I'll find a way. But I don't want to scare him. It has to be his choice." Word of their meeting spread even faster than before. A customer who had seen Keanu sitting with Daniel took a photo and shared it online with a short caption, "Keanu Reeves spends time with homeless boy artist." Within hours, the picture went viral. People everywhere wanted to know who the boy was. Offers of help poured in: art schools offering scholarships, charities offering housing, individuals offering supplies. The world seemed to suddenly care about Daniel. But Daniel didn't know any of this. He didn't use phones or the internet. He only knew that every evening now, Keanu came looking for him. Sometimes they sat quietly, sometimes they talked, sometimes Daniel showed him his sketches. Each time, Keanu encouraged him more. "You have something special," he would say. "Don't let the world take it away from you." One night, Keanu brought him a sketchbook and a set of pencils. Daniel held them as if they were treasures. His hands trembled slightly as he opened the sketchbook. Clean, white pages stared back at him. For so long, he had only drawn on scraps and napkins. The sight of so many blank pages waiting for his art filled him with both joy and fear. "Are you sure this is for me?" he asked softly. Keanu smiled. "Of course. Fill it up. Show the world what you see." Daniel's eyes glistened. He hugged the sketchbook close, whispering, "Thank you." But not everyone believed in miracles. Some people on the street scoffed when they heard about Daniel. They thought it was just another story that would fade, that nothing real would change. Daniel himself struggled with doubt. Part of him feared that Keanu would disappear one day, and all of this would turn out to be a brief moment of kindness that left him even more heartbroken. Those fears grew stronger when Keanu didn't show up one evening. Daniel waited outside the diner for hours, his new sketchbook on his lap, but Keanu never came. His heart sank, and old thoughts crept back in. Maybe I was foolish to believe. Maybe I'm still just a boy nobody wants. But what Daniel didn't know was that Keanu was searching for him more seriously than ever. He had spoken to local shelters, community workers, and even small charities, asking if they had seen a young boy named Daniel who liked to draw. He drove through the city late at night, stopping at parks and underpasses, his eyes scanning the shadows. He refused to give up. The search became public news. Reporters followed Keanu, asking questions, filming him as he explained why he cared so much. Talent can come from anywhere, he told them. This boy deserves a chance. If we don't help him, he might lose it all. I don't want that to happen. His words touched people's hearts. Volunteers began joining the search. They asked around in shelters, walked the streets with photos of Daniel's sketches, and spoke to anyone who might know him. Slowly, the city itself seemed to come alive with the mission of finding one small boy. Daniel, however, stayed hidden without knowing it. He moved from one place to another, carrying his sketchbook carefully wrapped in a plastic bag so it wouldn't get ruined. He drew whenever he could faces of strangers, the outline of buildings, birds sitting on wires. Each drawing was a piece of his soul, filling the once empty pages with life. Then, one evening, as he sat on a park bench sketching, two volunteers spotted him. They recognized the boy from the descriptions and the drawings they had seen online. Approaching gently, they asked, "Are you Daniel?" He froze, clutching his sketchbook tightly. "Why?" "Because someone's been looking for you," one of them said with a smile. "Keanu Reeves? He wants to see you." Daniel's heart skipped a beat. He wanted to believe, but fear held him back. "You're not lying," he whispered. "No," the volunteer assured him. "He's been searching everywhere. Come with us. You'll see." Daniel's legs shook as he stood, but hope pushed him forward. For the first time, he wasn't walking alone. He was walking towards something, towards someone who believed in him. That night, as the city lights flickered on, Daniel's journey was about to take a turn he had never dreamed of. Keanu was waiting, and their paths were about to cross again in a way that would change everything. Daniel's hands trembled as he followed the two volunteers through the streets. He clutched his sketchbook close to his chest, afraid it might somehow disappear. The night air was cool, and his heart beat fast with nervous energy. For days, he had doubted if Keanu would really come back, but now everything was happening so quickly. He didn't know if he was ready, but something deep inside told him he had to keep walking. When they reached the diner, the lights glowed warmly against the dark night. And there, waiting outside, was Keanu. He stood near the door, his hands in his jacket pockets, scanning the street with quiet hope in his eyes. When he spotted Daniel, his expression softened into relief. Daniel froze a few steps away, unsure what to do. Keanu didn't rush him. Instead, he stepped forward slowly, lowering himself slightly so his eyes met Daniel's. "There you are," he said softly, his voice calm and kind. "I've been looking for you." Daniel swallowed hard, his throat dry. "I didn't know if you'd really come back." "I promised I would," Keanu said gently. "And I keep my promises." The boy's chest tightened. He lowered his eyes, gripping the sketchbook tighter. "I thought maybe it was just for one night. Maybe I was silly to believe someone like you would care." Keanu's voice grew firmer, though it was still warm. "Never think that, Daniel. You matter. Your art matters. And I care very much. Slowly, Daniel lifted his eyes, and what he saw was not pity or charity. It was respect. For the first time in his life, someone looked at him not as a homeless child but as an equal. Tears filled his eyes, and he quickly brushed them away with his sleeve. "Come," Keanu said, nodding toward the diner. "Let's sit inside. You must be hungry." Inside, Maria greeted them with happy tears in her eyes. She set a warm plate of food in front of Daniel, who hesitated for a moment before eating. Every bite felt unreal, but Keanu sat beside him, making it feel safe. Between mouthfuls, Daniel opened his sketchbook and showed him the drawings he had filled over the past weeks. Page after page revealed his gift. Faces of strangers, scenes of the city, little birds, even Maria's kind smile, all captured with raw emotion. Keanu turned each page carefully, his expression a mix of admiration and awe. "These are incredible," he said. "You see the world in a way most people never do. You have a gift, Daniel. A rare one." Daniel's cheeks turned red, and for once, he didn't doubt the words. He believed them, because Keanu spoke with truth. After they finished eating, Keanu spoke to him about the future. "I don't want you to live on the streets anymore," he said. "You deserve a safe place. You deserve tools to grow your talent." Daniel's heart raced. "But, how? I don't have money. I don't have anything." "You have something greater than money," Keanu said. "You have talent, and you have heart. And I'm going to help you. Not as a favor, but because you deserve it." The next days moved like a whirlwind. Keanu reached out to organizations that could provide housing, and soon Daniel had a small, clean room in a shelter program designed for children like him. It wasn't fancy, but it was warm, safe, and his very own space. For the first time in years, he slept in a real bed with blankets, and he cried quietly that night from the simple joy of feeling safe. But that was only the beginning. Keanu also introduced him to art teachers who volunteered to mentor him. They gave him proper supplies, sketchbooks, pencils, paints, and encouraged him to practice every day. Daniel's world, once limited to scraps of paper and napkins, suddenly opened wide with possibility. The story of the homeless boy who drew Keanu Reeves continued to spread across the world. News channels told the tale, showing photos of Daniel's sketches. People wrote messages of support, cheering him on. "You're an inspiration," one comment read. "Never give up," said another. Daniel had never known so many people could care about him. At first, all the attention scared him. He wasn't used to so many eyes on him. But Keanu stayed close, guiding him through it all. "Focus on your art," he reminded him. "That's what matters. Let the world see who you are through your drawings." Months passed, and Daniel grew stronger. His drawings improved quickly, his lines becoming sharper, his expressions deeper. An art gallery eventually offered to display his work in a small exhibition. On opening night, Daniel stood nervously in the corner, clutching his sketchbook, until Keanu walked in and gave him a reassuring smile. "You did this," he whispered. "Be proud." People admired his drawings, some even buying them. For the first time, Daniel earned money from his art. It wasn't much, but to him, it was priceless. He realized that his dream of becoming an artist was no longer just a dream, it was his new life. One evening, after the exhibition ended, Daniel sat with Keanu outside the diner where it all began. The napkin sketch still hung on the wall, preserved carefully by Maria. Daniel looked at it with tears in his eyes. "That little napkin, it changed everything," he said softly. Keanu shook his head gently. "No, Daniel. You changed everything. The napkin was just the start. The strength, the courage, the talent, that was all you." Daniel smiled for the first time without fear in his heart. He no longer felt like a boy lost in the world. He felt like someone who belonged, someone who had a future. And all because he dared to draw one night when the world felt cold. As they sat together, the city lights glowing around them, Daniel realized something important. Life could be hard, unfair, and painful, but kindness could still break through the darkness. One person noticing you, one person believing in you, could change the story completely. Keanu had been that person for him. But Daniel also understood that his art could be that light for others. And from that day forward, he promised himself he would never stop drawing. Not just for himself, but to give hope to anyone who needed to see it. The homeless boy who once drew on napkins was no longer invisible. He had become an artist with a story the world would never forget.